Alright, so now we're moving on to the second graphics card. So this is going to be the R9 290X. So why did I choose, people are probably asking, why did I choose these specific graphics cards and not something more mid-range? Well, I feel like the answer to that is those that bought into these high-end GPUs, these top-tier GPUs like this 290X, the idea behind going top tier, there's two trains of thought. One is you only want the best of the best. You want bragging rights. You want to know that you have the fastest GPU of that generation. So people like that probably have already upgraded by now. Those are the type of people that are probably on the latest gen when it comes out. So they're probably already on, you know, RTX 30 series or the Radeon 6000 series. Like people who had this once upon a time in 2013 are probably on something like this. You know, a 6900 or 6800 XT, assuming they're not on the green team. If they're on the green team, that's fine. You know, I don't have those cards as a show, but they could be on like a custom AIB card like this Sapphire 6900 XT, for instance. So they're probably already upgraded. The other group of people that would have a 290X are those that bought it thinking that they're future-proofing their system. So in a way, that's true, because typically, you know, if you have this card when it's the top dog, then when the next gen comes out, you go from being top dog to now you're kind of like more in the upper to like the upper middle of the next gen. The best example I can give you is like if you had a 980 Ti, when the 10 series came out, now you're basically like a 1070, right? So you're now in the upper mid-tier, because the mid-tier is the 1060, the upper one would be the 1070, and then the high end would be 1080, and then the enthusiast would be the 1080 Ti. So that's what I mean by you move to the upper mid-tier by getting one of these and then not upgrading. So that basically allows you to skip one or even two generations of GPUs. So like if I had the 290X, for instance, I could skip Fury and I could skip Radeon 7 and then, or Vega 64, and then I would be looking at upgrading to, you know, a 6000 series card, like a 6800 XT, for instance. So I feel like that is probably the more logical upgrade, I guess, for those that don't upgrade that often. I feel like if you got this in, maybe not at release, but let's say you got one of these when it was a little bit cheaper, like the year after it was new. So in this case, it would be 2014. So if you got one of these in 2014, and you got one of these, or if you're looking at getting one of these now, you know, you got, you know, that's a long time to go, depending on when you bought this, you know, that's at least like 6-7 years that you got out of a graphics card. Like I would say if you have more than 5 years on a graphics card, that is very, very good. You got your money's worth at that point, considering this was like a $500 graphics card back in the day. So yeah, 5 years or more on a $500 graphics card, that's like $100 a year. And you've been able to game on relatively maxed out settings at 1080p the whole time. Pretty much in the last 2 years with this card, you would have had to drop settings in modern titles for sure. And we're going to kind of show how this card stacks up in some modern games here in a little bit. So if you guys are interested in that, stay tuned, and let's move on with the benchmarks. Okay, now we're going to be doing the 290X in Genshin Impact. So you can see right off the bat, we're at solid 60 FPS in the city. Let me move, but let's just like fly in the air here and see if the FPS drops. So you can see it's dropping down a little bit on the 290X. But this card definitely, the game does feel smoother to me, just moving the camera around like crazy. Let's go to a combat scenario. So for the rest of these benchmark videos, I will be using HDMI so that you have some audio to listen to compared to on the, it's just the 7970 was the only exception there. So you can see It's not really dropping all that much, and we got a lot of like particle effects. We're gonna do an alt here and see if it drops. No, it's pretty much 60 across. This game does not have an unlimited cap. It's like, it caps at 60 and you can't go beyond that. So the golden standard is 60, and this monitor is 60 hertz anyway, so in a way, I mean, it doesn't really matter. The point of this video is to kind of give you guys an idea of, like, for the people out there who play games like Genshin Impact, you know, because I know this game is very popular. It's not as popular as it was, but I know there's still a ton of people that play it, and the people that come back to it, you know, the 2.7 patch is coming out soon, so there's going to be new content. So that's going to bring some people back to it. But this is just to kind of show people, you know, like if you have an old computer, the average gamer out there isn't someone who's going to always constantly have the best of the best, right? So I think this, and they're not someone who just wants to look at bar charts the whole time and be told like what they should buy. I feel like this gives you more of like a real world example, because we're doing more than just a Rails, like you know, like a script on Rails doing benchmarks, which that's still a good way to measure whether or not something is good objectively. But I feel like this sort of gives you, the viewers, you know, more of like an everyday, the layman's or the average gamer's sort of like upgrade path, or what it's like for them, right? Because the average user is going to be on an older graphics card. They're not going to always be on like the current gen, or even last gen for that matter. They might be on something older like this, or they bought this used off of eBay or Craigslist or something, and they, you know, they're probably curious to know, you know, like, should they upgrade or not? And I don't think I've ever seen any reviewer cover this game in particular, so I think this is a pretty good showcasing. So you can see that the game runs really well on the 290X, and that is to be expected because this graphics card is similar to a GTX 1060 or an RX 480. So yeah, that's gonna do it for Genshin Impact. Game runs really, really well on the 290X. I don't see any issues running at max settings. We're usually at 60 FPS. In some combat scenarios, we're seeing it dip into the mid-50s at worst. But that's definitely better than the 7970. So let's move on to the next game and see how it does in Final Fantasy XIV. Okay, Final Fantasy XIV. So this is the game where, okay, I think we've got the frame rate. Frame rate's uncapped. And yeah, uncapped, and we're running at maximum settings. Now I'm already starting to hear that fan on the 290X speed up, and we're running at like 65 FPS in Libs Laminza. So let's go ahead and teleport or leave. See, let's go to Lower Lenosia and fly around. Let me use my lander waffle here to fly around. Zoom out a bit so you guys can see. So you can see it running at like 77. Just fly around, see. So, yeah, as I expected, it runs pretty good on the 290X. The only problem is the noise. So the noise on this graphics card, this in particular, this PowerColor PCS Plus. Now there was the Vapor. So if you had one of the 290Xs, the best one was the Sapphire Vapor X. It was like a bluish, blue and white or blue and silver colored graphics card. Unfortunately, I never managed to get one, so I stuck with the PCS Plus. PCS Plus is just loud. You know, Sapphire is really the best brand if you're going with a Team Red or an AMD Radeon card. By far, like by a pretty large margin. I mean, if I had to choose a second best, probably XFX, although PowerColor has done a whole lot better in recent years. Like the Red Devil series, from what I've heard, is quiet and doesn't have any of these issues with the noise on the fan. But here, if I just show you guys real quick, let's just move the camera over to the GPU. The other thing too is the GPU is pretty lackluster in terms of features. Like there's no, you know, LED bar, there's no RGB. It doesn't. There's no lights basically at all. This is all you get. So, but again, this is an old card. PowerColor has made a lot of improvements in the last couple of years. But if we get them, let's bring you guys up to here so you can hear the noise. Yeah, that's definitely the GPU. It's all fan noise. And it's not even that hot. I mean, there's heat coming off of the core right here. I can put my finger here, I can feel the heat there. And there's much less heat over here. There's quite a bit of heat over where the VRM is over here. But so it's doing its job. It's pushing the heat away from the card. It's a triple fan, but it is noisy. Not too noisy. It's like, if this was on the floor and with the side panel on, it would be a lot more tolerable. But I'm a stickler for noise, and that's why I've got a lot of Sapphire cards. Especially if it's a high wattage GPU like this. Okay. Alright, well that surprised me. Elden Ring is playable on the 290X. It's running pretty bad now. Yeah, that's looking pretty low FPS. This is definitely sub 30. This is sub 30. I mean, it's playable, but it's not an enjoyable playable in my mind. It's probably not catching it on the camera, but I can tell it's not. I can tell that it's definitely not. Okay, it's juddery, and it's definitely sub 60. I feel like the FPS is somewhere between, like, maybe upper 20s to low 40s. That's what it feels. Well, okay, now it seems like it's okay. Okay, now it's doing better. Now it's doing better. It might be just doing the Elden Ring thing, where it's just loading in a bunch of assets. So, okay, now it seems better. It's definitely not 60, though. Like, this is not 60. It's not enjoyable, but the fact that you can play it without any workarounds compared to 7970 is a huge plus in my mind. So yeah, it's a pass, but it's basically like I'll give it like a C. It's satisfactory, but it's not enjoyable like compared to what you're capable of doing with a modern graphics card. Even just a simple like 6600 would be miles ahead of this. Atelier Sophie 2. Anyway, so you can see it's 55 FPS. So it's a little bit better than the 7970, but not a whole lot better. So we're like in the 50s now, as opposed to the 40s. The mid 40s is where we were on the other card. And you know what's surprising to me is this GPU gets loud on this game. This game really doesn't look that graphics demanding. So it's one of those things where it's got like simplistic looking art direction, but it's probably using a lot of polygons for some reason. But yeah, the card's not super loud in this game, but I can hear it. It's audible, but it's weird because you can hear the fan like ramping up, then ramping down, and then ramping up, and then ramping down a little bit. It's kind of annoying. It's like oscillating. Alright, Monster Hunter World, another relatively demanding game. Alright, well here we go. Now we're gonna see how the FPS really runs, because now we're out in the world. So I'm seeing 54. You guys can see in the top up there it's showing 55, 56 FPS. 58 FPS. The frame rate is uncapped. If I look up at the sky, you can see it jump all the way up. So this is kind of the theoretical max of what this card can do. Looks like around 70 plus FPS. But realistically, we're doing more like upper 50s. Alright, so here we are with Neo 2. So borderless mode, 1080p resolution, rendering resolution 100%, 60 for some reason. Alright, let me go to the same area where I was last time. I think it was over here. Yeah, but this is definitely holding 60 like the whole time. I don't feel any dips. So this is definitely an improvement over the 7970. Okay. So now I'm able to get... Okay, so we're back with Tales of Arise, and already you can see it's running the game significantly better than the 7970. Which is quite surprising how much of a gain we're seeing here. So 70... We're in the 70s. 75... We're out in the field too, so let's do a battle real quick. So, really good. Wow. In fact, I can hear that fan spinning loud. That's the only thing I don't like about this card, is the noise. So if there's a way... Let me see, is there a way to cap the FPS? Vertical sync. Look, if I vertical sync it, that thing immediately became quiet. So, and you can run a solid 60 on the 60 hertz monitor, but so for games like this, you know, 60 FPS is good enough, at least for me. Now, a lot of people might not agree, but I think there's a lot that would agree. Now, this cuts down on power consumption and heat and noise and everything, so in a game like this, which is not like an Apex Legends type game, you don't really need that uncapped FPS, so this might actually be preferred. Alright, the last game. Again, ease, monster knocks, frame rate limit. I don't know why. If I turn VSync off, I can't see the fraps. So we're probably just gonna have to do that. So it's not hitting 60. So we're gonna have to keep showing this in subsequent videos because it's not hitting 60 all the time. I guess that's gonna be the test then. Like, can the graphics card handle the unoptimized mess that causes it to drop due to no culling? Now this is doing better than the other card, but like right around here, you know, right around here it dips, and I don't know if that's a game architecture problem or if it's the graphics card having trouble, because there's not a whole lot here, so it's kind of weird that it drops in that one area and then just jumps right back up, you know, as you go away from it. So I don't know, we'll test it with the Fury and see if it like is still a problem. I have a feeling that at some point there'll be a graphics card that's strong enough to just brute force through this. Probably gonna be like Vega 64 and above, if I had to guess. But yeah, so it's... Alright, conclusion time for the PowerColor PCS Plus 290X. So overall, a good showing, vastly improved over the Asus Matrix HD 7970 Platinum. I will say, there's another thing that I noticed with this card that I forgot to mention in the intro. this card does have dual BIOS. Got a BIOS switch on there. So, kind of bland on the side. But it is an old card, so I'm not really going to dock it for that. It's basically using the reference 290X board with a custom cooler thrown on there from PowerColor. They do a good job cooling all the memory modules and the VRM. So, overall, it's a pretty solid card. I was surprised, to be honest, how well it did. The fact you could play Elden Ring with it on an old legacy driver without any workarounds necessary. This was the first GPU that got rid of the Crossfire fingers, so you no longer need the bridge for Crossfire. So, really, really good card. Solid card overall. It's really stood the test of time. It's as good as a GTX 1060, 6GB, and an RX 480, and even RX 580. So, pretty good card overall. Just noisy, this particular model from PowerColor. But they have improved dramatically over the last couple of years. So, not really going to dock it too much for that. But I am a stickler for noise. So you can see it's pretty well-built cooler. Overall good card. Aged really well. In fact, I would go so far as to say if you're going to stay at 1080p and you play the type of games that I was showing, you really don't need to upgrade right now. You could potentially wait for the newer cards that are coming later this year. I feel like a card that I'd be interested in upgrading to from this, strangely enough, would be Intel's Arc. Intel's top-of-the-line Arc GPU. I feel like that is kind of a mystery at this point. The rumors say that it'll be like an RTX 3070 or a Radeon 6700 XT. Maybe 6750 XT and 3070 Ti. I'm not sure about that, but it keeps getting delayed, so I don't really know what they're doing. But I just feel like this card, I don't know, it's upgradable now if you want. But on the condition of you wanting to go to 1440p. I feel like if you're going to stay at 1080p, you can afford to wait for the next generation and then make a decision on whether you want to do a resolution upgrade. Along with the graphics card upgrades, you can save more money. You have a couple of months to, save up for that. Or if you want to upgrade now, then you can. I would say that probably if it was me, I want to go from this to, like a 6750 XT or maybe a 6900 or 6950 XT. Because the reason why I'm recommending top of the line is because the 290X was top of the stack back when it was new. So I feel like the typical buyer who has a card like this, assuming you bought it back in 2013 or the first half of 2014 when it was most relevant at the time, you've gotten your money's worth. I mean, this card has aged real well. So, you're able to upgrade to the 6900 series if you wanted. So that's basically going to be it. I was surprised that you could play Elden Ring with this, unlike the 7970. That was probably the biggest eyebrow raiser that I noted in this entire adventure here. And hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you like this series, please be sure to subscribe. If you want to see more tech videos like this and reviews, let me know in the comments below what you like about this video, what sort of topics you want to see me do around graphics cards, and I'll be sure to listen to the feedback. So anyway, guys, that's it for now. We'll be back next time with the R9 Fury from Sapphire. See you then.